And welcome to Prism. My name's Jo. I'm going to be your host this evening. Unfortunately, we're a little bit later than scheduled this evening. The reason why we're a little bit later is because we were supposed to have Chris Fleming, who is a medium who's going to join us this evening. However, I think somehow the timings have been a little bit off. So I've been trying to get hold of him for the last few minutes, but unfortunately haven't managed to get hold of him. So I'm going to have to reschedule that, guys. So I apologise. However, I have got my ye old faithful mentor and one of my ultra best friends within the paranormal. He doesn't really need any introductions because we kind of become a bit of a double act now. So Garry Fields in the show with us tonight. So thank you for the last minute, Garry.
Welcome and good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me along. It's nice to be psychic.
Oh, I know it's good that, and obviously all the time about everything that we've done previously, and you know it's great that he's always there to have my back, isn't it, mate?
Oh, it certainly is, and it works both ways, doesn't it? Because minded people, we pick up on quite a lot, and it's nice that we share them experiences along on an investigation and that.
Yeah, it's good. So we've got a couple of people in the chat room. So anybody out there who wants to ask either Garry or myself a question, then pop along to Spreaker.com and have a look for radio. And this is the Parallel Prism show. So just really to kick off, I've not been on an investigation since Drakelow, which was a good few weeks now.
But going back to that as well, Jo, when we did Drakelow and the time we went there previously, how things tied up for the last investigation there, which I thought was quite mind-blowing as well, where we got to the bottom of things as well on the investigation together.
Yeah, I think there was myself, there was you, there was Karen, there was Eddie, and we had our own little group, didn't we? And we kind of, we basically had some amazing experiences. I'm not going to go into quite a lot of what Karen did because we're on the show at some point. So
Excellent.
So I don't really want to discuss. However, it's like, I don't know, Karen and I are connected in some sort of way. It's very, very strange. But what's your take on mediums being very connected and quite in tune with each other?
Well, I'm a big believer that in past lives that people do get thrown together in like-minded circles within this life. You've got that gift as well. So I do feel it follows on for more knowledge and understanding of a bigger picture. And I heard a nice comment last week on your show, which I really enjoyed. Is like, I think you mature as well as you're going along with it as well, you know, which is always nice. And we never stop learning with that side of it, do we?
No, we don't. And it was lovely to hear Sally speak. I think a lot of people kind of warmed a little bit more to Sally as well, because she's, you know, she does have her stage persona, doesn't she? And she comes across as, when she was talking to me, we were actually video calling at the same time, and it was just lovely to actually watch her face, you know, like her facial expressions and watch her mannerism. But it was just like friends chat away over a phone call. Well, it's a bit like me and you, really, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's always nice to get the understanding of the other person's perspective of how they've seen nights developing and understanding on how they work as well, and sharing them experiences, because that's what we're basically doing with the likes of yourself and the shows and all that. We're putting them experiences out there for people to get out there and basically have a go themselves and really get the teeth into it and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think what it is when you when you come together with somebody who is a medium, and you know, we've all been there, haven't we, where we're not very confident. I mean, I've had my confidence knocked a few times, but when you're not very confident and you're coming up against like-minded people who actually give you that little bit of a, you know, come on, stand up straight, let's get this, you know, let's do this together. I think that's amazing, and a lot of mediums do that as well. So I do apologise if there's any feedback.
Just get some feedback. With the confidence with the confidence side of it as well, it's nice to see people like yourselves as well get there and taking that extra step up and pushing themselves to learn different things within the field as well.
Mm. I think I know like we've had quite a lot of instances where we've been channeling. We've had quite a lot of experiences we wouldn't have necessarily had, and I quite enjoy it, to be honest with you, because you always kind of, I think you've been at this game for a very, very long time, but you knew exactly what to do when I'd had the probably the most horrific experience I'd ever had, and I speak and say it's horrific, but that was a steep learning curve for me. And
again, it's always midstream there is to experience it from that level. So as you're moving forward now, it won't be as in depth as that. So as you're moving forward, all the levels of the strength of what's in and around you then as well, with any types of the channeling as well. That full hands-on. So once you've experienced that, you get to the understanding to know the strengths of that energy that's coming in and around you that wants to work with you.
Yeah, it's like as well, because we've come to the point where I know where I'm at and what I'm doing, and being around MJ, being around yourself, being around Aaron, being around other people who are working as a medium is kind of strengthened my I don't know this, but strengthened my belief system that I am able to cope with anything that is thrown at me now.
Yeah, definitely, and that's where I was coming from. It's them little steps give you the strides where you've got that ability now to cope with a lot more within your locker, a lot more within your toolbox, and a lot more that you've got the understanding then to cope with them type of situations, and the understanding likes of, you can shut off and you can close right down. And as you've seen where I did close a session down there right towards the end, it was because there was no need to carry on and push it past a certain situations, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, it's all about being in control of an evening, know what's going on. And a lot of the times as well, you get the understanding of what's happening prior to it, because you're working with your spiritual team as well. So you get the understanding of what's going on within your spiritual team. So the people that you work with, they will give you a nudge on the shoulder or give a little nudge within your mind, and they'll just explain things prior to anything happening as well. So they get to understand how you want to work as well. So they are adapting and developing as well. As well as yourself. So that's okay to see. So if you think where you've come from in the last 12 months, I've enjoyed it on the roller coaster ride that we've been on, and the team and at the places that we've been getting out about to, because it's nice to see other people working in the field of them levels, very like-minded, and experiencing and sharing their knowledge as well. So again, we're picking up on everybody else in the field, which
it is. It's amazing because since obviously, like we say, it's been a roller coaster months, hasn't it? And I've met so many wonderful, also mediums. Mandy is one of them, who's newbie paranormal, absolutely lovely lady, and they welcomed me with open arms, and it was just amazing. And then you've got Dave and Emma from Forgotten Era Paranormal as well. They're just just equally as receptive and warm and caring as a team, and it's so nice to get out and about with different teams. And I mean, we're out with Keep Paranormal tomorrow.
We are.
That's going to be a fantastic night, if anything's to go by what we've seen previously. But yeah, I mean, it's great. Part of the Sage tribe as well now. So that's, it happens for a reason, I think. And
it's certainly a nice umbrella to be along with as well, isn't it? Because it's all professional as you can get. It's all, you try and do as best as you can. And, sometimes there is ways that we might get a certain thing wrong. I mean, how many times have I dropped something, or the right time, right place, and batteries, or we've dropped a piece of equipment. So again, we're still learning as well. So again, it's all about that enjoyment of trying to get the evidence and bringing it back to the table to review and express what we find as well.
Yeah. We've got Lucy, who's in the room, and she says that you learn from others to build confidence in her personal experiences, but like all of us, we've all come across negative experiences, haven't we? Which, you know, we've had, and I've heard some paranormal teams who have, you know, just outed people from teams just through, you know, just lack of understanding about people's personal situation. And that's quite horrific, isn't it, really?
It is. If somebody's going for time, there'll be great spirits, energies in and around them that were of a similar situation or a similar strength or whatever. They will work and communicate with that person on an evening or in a location. If they see signs of areas where they can work along that person, they'll join in on that ride as well. So sometimes a lot of mediums do have to shake off of what's going on in the normal field as well within their daily routine. And that's why I always say to people when we go into a location or we go to a place, or even if it's not, have a blank for the start of it. So you put your stuff behind and then you're just moving forward as a blank canvas. And your team get to understand then. It's like, you know, you've cleared the way forward then to fill the night up or fill the evening up. And, you know, sometimes we've had some very long investigations, can be very quiet. Then all of a sudden, a lot of things tie in and work and fall into place for what we was getting at the start. It might be quiet for 3 or 4 hours, and then 3 or 4 hours later, you get to the bottom of the situation of what's going on spiritually. And again, mediums, we do have communication with different spirits that's trying to overlap that as well, where you are trying to concentrate on a few things, but you can have 6 things trying to communicate with you all at once. So again, it's that you work with me one at a time. So again, it's all about you being in control, and that's where your strengths step up. And as you step up with your situations with things, you get more confidence. And when the confidence comes, you're around like-minded people, you do get more interaction.
Yeah, and it was like when we were in Drakelow and we had one medium in trance and I was stood there, it was literally like you'd ask a question and I know exactly what the answer was. And obviously me working in tune with that medium there, it kind of meant that I think I've been here before at some point, because
you've also got the link of what's going on within the situation. So you're getting a link from one person and one energy. You build a link of what's going around the pocket of energies that's in and around you as well, Joe.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was such a great night. So, you know, I can't wait to carry on working with people. And it's well, yeah, I can't really I can't more about Drake, but where is your most favourite and why?
Favourite location, I would say there's basically 2. I do get called to places spiritually to visit. I would say St George's Hall in Liverpool. You've got the catacombs, you've got the prisoners' cells, you've got the courtrooms. Within an evening, I've got the full range of. You could have a judge with you that's picking up on prosecuting people stood before him, and you're picking up on the person that's stood before the judge in the courtroom, and then they were serving the judge of a weekend. It's without going into too much. Again, it's that process of what was going on in the 1800s, the 1900s, and you get to the bottom of a lot of things that make sense, you know.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say like-minded with the top number 1 for me was the Tower of London.
Wow.
I was called there spiritually and to do things there, but when I got to the Tower of London, it was just like going back in a time warp. It was just as if it had been transported back, and just the layers as you were just walking around, it was just gripping every second that I was there. It was just mind-blowing. So again, even on a day visit, you're still getting a lot of information. You're still getting people touching you on the hand, and it was just mind-blowing in the Tower of London.
I think in general, those places have got so much history, though, haven't they? That's encompassed within those walls, that those energies are going to be in and around you anyway. And what I find amazing is when you get energy shifts from one time to a different time.
It certainly is, and at the minute, I possibly might be going over to Liverpool again. I'm looking for the time slip. In and around Bald Street, there's a renowned time slip, so where people talk about of ley lines and all of that. I'll be doing a little bit of investigating in and around that time slip and trying to find that energy shift from one side of the street to the other.
Yeah, it's It's really funny that, because where I live in Wakefield, there's a paranormal team who are really lovely. They're called Equinox, and Julie she is lovely, and they went to investigate just a road which is renowned for looking at things that aren't particularly there.
Yeah,
That sounds really strange, but it's like when you're looking at a house, you can actually see a manor house that was there previously, and
yeah.
they said that this has happened a number of times. And do you think that can happen?
Sometimes you might get that vision as well in the mind's eye. It all depends how receptive you are, in which way that medium works, or which way that time or the team will work, basically. Again, a lot of it's down to timing, where I think where I went out on the summer solstice, I was expecting really very busy night. I think it was in the 18 Ram, and it was a quiet night. So I was a little bit surprised there. But again, there's no guarantees. This is what you're going through. And when you go through certain towns and villages, you do get, as you're driving past, you get drawn to them buildings, and you're like, I've got to stop there, and you can't. You do get drawn to places. You do get drawn to these buildings.
Well, you're a little bit of a bugger for doing that anyway, aren't you? Because we've been driving before now, and you're like, I like that place. And I was like, have you ever been? No, I haven't. But yeah, you are one of those people who has to, and not just you, actually. I think I do it quite often as well. When we've been in groups that we've been with, they've done it as well.
Also, I'd like to throw a little test out there for any of the listeners, if they'd like to do it on any of their paranormal nights. It's just basically, I've done Stanley Palace, I've done that quite a lot. But when you go there, just stand outside when you're having a coffee break, close your eyes and try and visualise what it was like back in the days. And then you get all them sensuous smells coming in. I could see straw on the floor, and it was just absolutely, sometimes you've got to give yourself that breathing space as well, just to get in the zone as well. So even on a little coffee break, you can just stand by a building and say, right, just take the layers off, give me some more information, and you'd be surprised. So it's like a little bit of a meditation in and around the building. All you're doing is zoning out for a couple of minutes and just giving that time and space just to visualise what it was like back in the day.
Yeah, and it happens quite often though, that doesn't it? I mean, I've got quite a not a stressful job. I'm not going to say that. I absolutely love my job, doing what I'm doing, but at the minute I am so busy. But I don't get 5 minutes to kind of switch off. And over the past couple of days, I've noticed that I'm finding it even more increasingly difficult to switch off. And how do you switch off when you've had days that you think, oh my goodness?
Well, basically, obviously, I do have a permanent full-time job, which I fully enjoy, really enjoy it. What I basically do, your office is always open or closed. So when you want to work, your office is open or your office is closed. It's as simple as that. So there's always a time and a place. If it's not the time and the place, then shut yourself down, close. And then when you want to work, that's when you work. Today, for instance, went off to Holywell in North Wales, had an amazing day. Do a lot of work with me White Witch, and she does a lot behind the scenes for me, a lot of house clearances from distance. So basically went to Holywell today, picked up on amazing energies, and then we drove then on to Anglesey, and we went to Balmaris. And as we went to Balmaris, just picking up on that amount of energy. But as soon as I came home, been round the castle for a walk and been to the jail. As soon as I came home, I obviously had a nice shower, bath and unwind, and I put sage sticks on, and I just make sure that things don't come in and across my threshold, basically. So again, it's dropping them energies off. I do hear so many times of mediums picking up with attachments and people on teams and struggling to notice when another energy is trying to affect them very, very strongly. Again, it's all about the order that you do things. So when you do come back in on an investigation and you're tired, just basically it's like having a spiritual shower. You just basically cover yourself in loads of love and white light, and everybody works in different ways.
Yeah, and that's right though. Everybody does work in different ways. I mean, people ask me constantly how I work, and I can read photographs, I can read, I pick up on voice vibrations, I pick up on psychometry. It's a really, really great thing to have. Well, I love it now. I never used to. I used to feel like a bit of a bit of, I don't know, it sounds horrible, but a freak of nature. And
people need to see the strength of what you've got. It's sometimes that I think other people, they want to test you, they want to push your boundaries, and when you're in again with like-minded people, it's that time that you can relax and unwind. And I'll always ask people, put a picture in an envelope and just see if anybody in the team can pick up on what's on there, even before the night on an investigation. It just gives that energy, the time to build of what you're after. And you'd be surprised, even like so where you touch the items and people touch the doors and all that. It's just great, some of the stuff and the visions that can come through, and what my spiritual team can tell me as well, that everybody out there can do this. They can develop on different parts of what they do, that they can build their own strengths with what they do as well, so they can test themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's good when you've got so many mediums in one place as well, because when one medium is on an opposite side of a venue and they're actually picking things up and you're actually picking up the same thing at exactly the same time, you couldn't really write that, could you?
No, definitely not. And again, with anything, we've all had it there where you've been in situations, and we've all, a few of us have talked and we've gone, right, we need to put protection up, we need to put the vibrations up, we need to close in, we need to wrap up. So again, you get used to that within the environment as well. So I like to see it where people do say what they're sensing and do give what they're given, because in a different part of the room, it can be totally different from one far corner to the other. But if you've got a few mediums that's picking up on the same, that's even brilliant, because you've got the strength of the link then. So to me, you're more protected when that's going on as well, because we're very like-minded. And we had that situation where we went to the mansion in Manchester, and we both seen that same lady, and we was both picking up on that same lady. And they're the nice things. You yourself got the self-validation of what's in and around us straight away.
But we were in different teams though, weren't we? That's what the beauty of that was. We were both in different teams, and it's when we came back together and we were discussing it with the two teams, and I actually said something and you actually corroborated that and said we had exactly the same thing, and it was lovely for the two groups to actually listen to that and to say, well, actually, how can she pick it up on it and he picked up on it, and we've all just come back together. We've not seen each other, but yet you've both said the same story.
Straight away within a couple of minutes as well. And what I really enjoy seeing is the psychic art. Where we went to Knutsford, and I think I was describing the person I was seeing. I had one person drawing the person in a different part of the room, and then somebody later on took a photo of the actual picture that was drawn, which is the person that I seen. So we've got like 3 validations of evidence. That is amazing. You just can't beat that when it all ties in together. It's such an amazing feeling as a medium to go, wow, spot on, amazing.
Well, it's like when we all went to, I can't remember where it was now, was it like
the old church that's been moved?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, that was quite just outside Knutsford, wasn't it?
Yeah, that place was amazing, because there was how many different people there, and we had Dave drawing the psychic art, and everything that Dave had drawn, we'd all said.
And it was amazing how even and remember yourself stood and you was drawn to the far corner of the field, the far corner of the plot that was in on that situation as well. So again, you can sense other things at different times where it's like we're all spotters within the field with the mediumship. You're all picking up on stuff at the same time, but we're all looking after each other as well, which is always nice. So you've got everybody else's backs as well at the same time.
I think that's good though, isn't it? That everybody's got each backs, because I mean, Drakelow for me, when that happened, obviously channeling a spirit which I didn't expect to. Well, I say I didn't expect to. I'd already said to you, hadn't I? As soon as we walked in, I'd asked for it to happen. I was like, I think I'm going to try it. I had no idea what was going to happen. And to have that experience, but then for Eddie to actually drop to his knees at the same time, well, a couple of minutes after, that just said everything to me, because that's how I felt. I felt like I was going to drop to my knees, and I didn't feel like myself. I felt like a man, and it was so strange. But the second time I went, I was ready for it, and I kind of put those spiritual boundaries up and said to myself, this isn't going to happen again.
Also, what I've got the EVPs for that as well, for that evening, which I have had a little rerun.
Have you?
And I remember, I certainly have, and especially in the medical room week, that was an eye-opening experience as well, because the same energy that we dealt with at the end of the night was in and around, was it John, the gentleman?
Yeah.
So that was very strong, and then obviously I've channeled him through at the end of the night, which is obviously showing you that person and that image, as well as the strength of how much John was trying to come forward in channeling that gentleman as well, and how strong he was.
Yeah. And what was really strange as well about that is that both Karen and I were sat there just laughing uncontrollably, and to the point where it was like I'd taken some sort of nitrous oxide and like, and it was
laughing gas.
Oh, honestly, it was so funny because all I could see that there was somebody laid in the bed, and Karen was opposite me. She had a full white nurse's uniform on, and she was laughing, and she kept saying, try this, and I was laughing, and it was one of those comedy value moments that I knew exactly what was happening, but just could not control it whatsoever.
Well, again, that's experiencing of what a medium receives, basically, of that energy and the entity that was there prior, of what they would have done in that building, what they would have done in that room for one night or the odd night. And basically that's reliving of what they've experienced as well when they were living on this plane, which is just amazing.
It is. And Drakelow always absolutely drains me for some reason. You know, I went back to Mark's house afterwards, and literally I must have slept so many hours, and it was just it drains me, and I still love the place, but I think I've outdone it now. I kind of need some new venues to venture to.
Well, as again, what I always say to people is just have loads of water on the investigations as well. That keeps you topped up with you know, just keep you topped up as well. The water is the purity as well that you put them back inside, so you don't have the dip. You won't get your paranormal hangover as strong if you do have that water as well, because it's the purity as well. Because our body within needs so much, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So
again, they're the boundaries of just understanding of, you know, one night you might not have as much water, or you might not have as much fluids, and then you do feel drained, and sometimes you might have too much coffee, or you just not got the balance right. So it's all about keeping the balance right and the process right.
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10, I do go through a little bit of a routine with the first session, the second session, and then we try and build up towards the end.
And I know Garry, I know you. You're one of my best friends within the paranormal, and you know, but people out there who don't know you, how did you get started in this field?
It was just basically, again, I seen too much too quick as a youngster, shut down from it. Every 7 years, getting a 7-year cycle of deja vu, a lot of like freezing moments in time. A lot of things started tying up then over the 7-year period. So 7, 14, 21, as you're growing through your adulthood, then just seemed open really more around about 42 to 49. It just really started in, and then it was met me Reiki masters, so that changed and gave me the understanding of the energies and the entities that's out there. So I tap into what's going on with all that as well. So again, I always say there's a lot of people lived before us, so we're just bringing all them energies alive, bringing the buildings alive, and basically I've just learned and pushed myself with different tools in my locker. I would love a few more things in my locker in the toolbox, like the drawing would be amazing. But if that's meant to be, it's meant to be. Now, I know a very good friend of mine is an international medium. I know he does the psychic artist drawing as well. And he's explained how to push that and go for that. But if it's not the right time and the right place, I'll wait for my team to do that. And you know, see me, I do carry a pad, because you can give a pad to somebody, and then before you go back to the coffee room, or you're having a chat and a break and that, when you go back, them pages, there's 2 or 3 things on the pages already, so you've got a lot of evidence on there as well. So it all ties in, but I do enjoy watching the simple things of your yes and the no's. the simplistic of how you can make it simplistic. And then a lot of people do work with equipment as well. I think a lot of people want to see the equipment going off for me, but again, I don't need to carry any, I don't need to take any. I'm just trying to give the visualization.
Yeah, it's that visual element though, isn't it? When you go on an investigation, you know, people like to see lights glowing up and, you know, they want to understand why that's happening. But for like the likes of us, we already see that happening. We already know it's happening. But to try and explain that to somebody who's never been on a paranormal investigation or who's never really, or actually should I say, who's been into a house which is supposedly the most notorious poltergeist house and them feel absolutely nothing in there and just say, well, it just looks like a house. You know, I know certain things that have happened in that house, and I'm not going to bang on about everybody's personal experiences because those are what people have on a daily basis. What they said was that basically it just looked like a big, you know, a big facade, really. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
We'll go and we'll push to get more evidence on the in-depth to try and get to the bottom of that. Next time we go, 14th for September, without naming a place.
Yeah.
Again, and I'll always go with that blank canvas because I don't want anything to invalidate what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So whatever comes in on that evening, brilliant, great. I had an amazing situation at the Skerritt Inn a couple of weeks back, and a lady came to me and I just asked her to stand next to me and experience the energy that was next to me. And then she started channeling the maid through there. And she was like, it was just like going back. I could see the horse outside because we was outside the Skerritt Inn and we'd just come back from the churchyard. And she said, Garry, I could see it as if it had gone back in time. I could see everything that he was explaining. And I was saying, I didn't have to look to the right. I knew there was a chap getting off his horse. And I knew there was another person there that was tendering the horse. And when we went back later on in the night, the maid, she actually went into room 1 and she wasn't in trance. And I told her about the situation of something had happened to a child there. And she could actually see, and somebody was questioning me, well, how do you know that this child's been in it? I said, well, I've already been explaining, the team's explained the situation that's gone on. And then the next minute, the lady could see through her mind's eye the child as if she'd reached out to go and grab hold of it again, because it was that reunitement of that maid seeing her child in spirit and reaching out for each other. And it was just a mind-blowing situation. And she just took a step forward. She did stumble moving forward, but I did catch hold of it just lucky enough in time. So again, it's all about being in control, being in the right place at the right time, because a lot of people, if they're grounded as well, that certainly helps.
Yeah, and the Skerritt Inn is probably one of those places, a bit like Margam Castle, which is well on my radar to go and visit. And I've heard so many like mediums and just normal people that tell me quite a lot of stuff about those places. And it's one of those places I think you have to experience that for yourself, don't you?
We certainly do. And again, Margam Castle, I've had amazing evidence there with just a laser grid. The laser grid actually shrunk in onto the spirit energy of the outline of a male figure. So it drawn all the laser grid onto itself as well. We wasn't filming at the time. It was right close towards the end of the night, and we all stood there virtually jaw dropped. We was like, did anyone get that? Did anyone see that? And we went, yeah, we've all seen it. No one took any pictures, and the camera wasn't rolling at the time. But that's the way it goes. That's the validation of just seeing that happen when you're asking spirit just to draw the laser grid onto yourself. Then if you stood before us and then it happens, you're just like, wow.
I find sometimes, I think obviously like laser grids and things like that sometimes can kind of play tricks with your perception, I think sometimes. So I try not to trust the laser grids, but I trust what I'm given and what I'm feeling at that time.
What you actually seen with that laser grid for that minute was the outline of the silhouette of a man. So all you could see was the laser grid on that person, where it just shrunk in away from the whole room, and all you could see was the outline of that person with the laser grid all on him. So where it was showing the whole room as the laser grid, it brought all the energy in onto that person in the laser grid, and everyone was just like, oh my God, oh my God. And you could see it drawing the energies in towards it. And it was just an amazing, that's the first time I've ever seen that. And I would say I'd be very surprised if I ever seen that again.
So what experiences have you had at Margam Castle? Because I know we've obviously discussed things previously, but what have you experienced there?
We had a Class A EVP of Check the Brook, which is obviously there's a stream that runs in and around that, and that was in and around a child. So we've actually got a Check the Brook moment on that as well, and it was like, it sounded like Check the Brook, but when you actually listened to it and slowed it down a little bit, it was Check the Brook. So again, sometimes with the EVPs, you've got to like, wow. And we've been talking about in the last session about a young child. A friend of mine went off into another room with some equipment, and then we just linked it back up to the laptop, and it was there. Check the Brook. It was just like, oh my God. And the way that they tie in just with Margam Castle as well.
It is so interesting though, isn't it? When you do get those voice coming through on the voice recorder or any sort of, medium that you can use as a recording device. We've had so many. I mean, we left Drakelow Tunnels and the guys carried on after we left, and they heard Garry as clear as day, didn't they, on the voice recorders?
He certainly did, and MJ picked up on that, and that was amazing. And when we've been to other locations, likes of MJ will say to me, "Who have you got with you today?" Because she can see people in my team and all that, and I'm laughing, I'm going, "Oh, I don't know MJ," and I do, I know it was the team are and the spirits are, but I think they work in their own ways, and it's not about them being shy. It's about that they will come into play and work with what they need to do to help everybody else as well. So sometimes it's a not need to know basis. Sometimes where it's like you don't give some of your tricks and not tricks, but you don't give all your answers away. You've got to retain some of the information and knowledge that you've learned.
Yeah, and it's nice that other people can see the people that you've brought with you. And I mean, it's what I find strange is that when I look at my team and my grandmother's very, very prevalent within that team. I've also got other different people within my team, which is growing rapidly. And we talked about that experience that I had when I was here on my own in the house. And I'd had a pretty rough couple of days, and I kind of woken up to what I can only describe as she must have looked like an absolute angel, because I wasn't scared. I wasn't upset. I wasn't petrified. It wasn't unnerving, but I just basically asked her who she was, and she just said, "I'm here to help." And since then, I've just felt like an almighty sense of everything's going to be all right.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what happens. Your spiritual team can grow, and a few energies and spiritual team in your energies can go elsewhere as well. In and around, if other people are working that and get on with, they can go and help them as well. I had a situation where a good friend of mine was asleep, and they'd brought an attachment back from Croxteth Hall in Liverpool. And in the night, obviously, because I'd helped train and develop this young friend of mine, was an excellent medium. And I said to her, at any point, at any time, if you feel insecure, just call out for me, even in your mind's eye, just call out for me. And I was virtually out of body and virtually fighting this lower energy off of this spirit that was trying to communicate with a very low level energy, where it was just basically, it didn't understand back in the days of how strong it was. But when it's come through and worked in and around my friend walking around Croxteth Hall, seen her light, and it's just gone, boom, I'll go and work with that lady, even though that she wasn't working at the time because she was in a sleep. So what she's done, she's been woken up by this energy and virtually gone, right, she's just called out for me. So I've just travelled virtually out of body to help spiritually fight this energy and entity off. But until the next morning, all I remember was basically turning over 5 or 6 times, going, what was that? Why, there shouldn't be any energies in my house like that. What's all that about? And then I get an inbox the next morning, Garry, I've had this situation going on in the night, and then we've tied in and worked out what's gone on. And just to get validation of that alone is that's the team protecting you even when you're at sleep, even working with each other. That's the strength of how collectively you can work together. You put your mind to it as well.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting is well, we're talking about obviously helping other people now, aren't we? And how we just help people in everyday life. I mean, I went to a friend and gave a reading to one of her friends, and a couple of weeks later everything hadn't settled down, and she called on me and I went over and helped, and now she just said my life has improved so much since you helped. She said you're probably one of the most kindest people I've ever met. And you know, she even texts me every now and again asking me how I am, and you know, I get such a sense of satisfaction that you've kind of helped somebody, but also you've given them members of their family who've wanted to make themselves known.
It's tying the link in, isn't it? It's giving the understanding, hence why we are the medium, we are the middleman, we're the middle person, we are the middle. Obviously, you're the middle female, but obviously we're the middle person in all of this. Sometimes I don't retain a lot of information that I might have given an hour ago. It's because it comes out, and you don't need to fill the sponge up. Basically, where if you remembered everything, it's just like a defrag. You need to offload a lot of things. So I think when you're in the power and it's flowing, it comes in, it goes out, and you're just giving the information, and that's always the best way to work.
Yeah, the feed just went down then. I think it was a bit strange. So, yeah, we are the middlemen, aren't we? Really?
Yeah, we are the middle person. I think as well, just an understanding there for people out there listening, tuning in. A lot of the times come around again. So, like a lot of people are doing seances and stuff like that, and Paula, you know, them evenings back of like what it was in the 1900s, and the understanding of. Can you imagine what a lot of people would have been thinking 100 years ago when they were getting any interaction in and around an evening?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of things come around and about again in time of the old ways, the paganism and all that. It seems to be on a size and value again as well.
It is as well when we mention the paganism like that. We've got a full moon coming up, haven't we? Facebook feed, and I can actually see when you know, my medium friends from across the pond, like Randy Marie, who works with Detroit Paranormal Expeditions, and Stephanie Hutnick, when I read their feeds and they're like, you know, oh, there's a weird energy about today, and it's really strange because when the Mercury retrograde happened, you know, everything just seemed to just go off the scale, didn't it?
It certainly did, yeah, for about 2 days, if I remember, but I think sometimes when you slow down and you think about it, you go, it's that retrograde moment or she's going on. And you can feel the atmosphere. It's like, a bit like a thunderstorm before it happens, isn't it? You can feel it building, but you can't think about it. And you've got to run with it. You've got to go through that strength of the energy shift and all that. I would say about 5 or 6 years I've been saying things about the North Pole and the shift of that. I've seen something today about the axis and the magnetic poles all changing, and that's had a big effect with a lot of communication in and around the globe as well. So there is shift. It's always going to be changing and adapting as well in and around what's going on with the universe and the world.
There is, and it's amazing how the moon and everything has that ability to shift energies, though, isn't it?
It is, and I see other things as well with. I put other people onto other stuff because I don't like reading into stuff, and I'll get them to get their overview on it, and especially where you get these shifts and people talking about things prior to things happening, and when you get a link to something, I'll share it with good friends who are in them fields of, you know, people like the UFO stuff and all the theory stuff and all that. So when I do see the other stuff, I always share it. I always try and put it out there for people to. It's not just about my view. Let's bring other people's view in it and their understanding as well. Yeah,
I want to research a hell of a lot more into like the moon and things like that and how it affects us. In fact, I've started to read quite a little bit more just to calm my brain down from being at work all day. And you know, Mark goes off to sea shortly, so I'm kind of in that essence where I need to start upping my game a little bit more in the medium side of things, the channeling, but also reading up on, the universe and how that affects us and emotions and things like that. I think it's quite beneficial as a person to read that and to grow and to learn.
I can see that as well, especially with my day job. I can see a shift when a good friend of mine says, "Oh, we're coming into a full moon soon," and I can see that affecting in and around my day job. I can see that affecting other people in and around me as well. So again, there's going to be a build up. There's going to be an activity, and it does affect a lot of people in all walks of life as well, from a very young age right up to an older age of person as well. So I can see them shifts happening in and around when we're coming into a full moon or a different type of moon as well.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I think I've learned now that I know when I'm so busy, and well, Mark says it all really. He says, "Oh, you've been maungy for the past 2 days," and I think this is what it is. It's because I've been so busy at work. I've not been sleeping that great, but then I've realised that the energy of the moon is changing again. So maybe I'm just picking up on things, little tweaks in the atmosphere. I don't know.
Well, you will certainly be picking up on other stuff that's going on around, but it'll stand out to you more as now, Joe, because that's what your team will be putting you through these tests. Your team will be taking the limits. Your team will put you in a situation as well to see how you react as well, because they'll only give you so much of a certain thing that you can cope with and deal with at a time. And I always say to people, it's all about how you react is the most important thing in that situation or in and around any spirits, energies that's going on. Heavens forbid if you walked into a place and 1,000 spirits wanted to communicate with you all at once. It's just going to jam up, isn't it? So again, that's filtering and understanding. And I do always say that we never stop learning, and that's the most important thing.
I know, and you know what? We are always learning, aren't we? And do you know what? We've been talking, and we have been a little bit late, haven't we, to the show this evening? And bless Chris, he's just messaged me saying, have I missed it? So he sends his apologies, everybody, for obviously missing the show this evening. But I'm in the process of booking him again, so all is not lost.
Look forward to rescheduling.
Yeah, so I'm quite looking forward to that, because I had so much to talk to him about. So this kind of show's been a little bit off the cuff and quite unprepared. And I think obviously, because I know you, Garry, it's always easy to talk to you, but it's been unprepared. So it's it's one of those off the cuff shows. So that's sometimes how we have to go, isn't it?
But that's again the situation of it's how you deal with things that count. You run with it, you go with it, you do your best, and that's all you can do. It's all about doing your best at that moment in time. And at the end of the day, it's giving people our experience as well. So again, it's just a nice little learning curve as well. So it's always nice to have plan B as well. So you can expand on your booklet. You can have a stand at any time, just in case situations happen technology-wise as well.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of brings us to the close of the show this evening, because obviously we have PSH Radio who's on next at 9:00. So why not stay tuned and listen to Sam and Carl discuss whatever they're discussing this evening. You can catch my show, the Parallel Prism show. It is now moving to a Monday evening. So we're replacing the Supernatural show at 9:00. So as of the 19th of August, we are going to be live at 9:00. So I have the lovely Karen Frey, who is one of the founding members of Keep Paranormal. She works very closely with Jane Harris and MJ Dixon in Sage Tribe. So it's going to be fantastic, and I can't wait to speak to her, because we have so much in common. So you can catch us on Parasearch Radio, and you can catch us on Facebook at Parasearch Radio group page. You can also catch us here every Monday at 9:00, as well as you can catch up on all shows at 9:00 on Spreaker. But with that, all I can say is thank you for tuning in. Good night and God bless.
Thank you for having me.
See you later, Garry.
All right, thanks, Mum.